No, Bane, I am not muted, but I'm playing a little hurt today. That's all right. It's the King's Court. Jerry Reynolds Tuesday. Dave is in first. What is up? How are we doing today? Dave beat you, Adam. How's that feel? Dave, you win. I wish I had something to give away right now. Actually, we do, but that's when we hit 1,000 followers on the X. What's up, everybody? Jerry Reynolds joining us at 2:30, maybe a little bit earlier than that. Looking forward to it. Reynolds remembers. I actually want to ask Jerry about if he went back, did a Reynolds remembers 2? What would he add into it? What would the new chapters be? And I kind of want to get a little bit more on the background of what really made him want to write that book. 'Cause it's a great book. If you haven't read it, go check it out. And if you notice, Jerry told us last week when we were talking about the trading cards that fans from time to time would send Jerry his card and ask him to autograph it. Well, there's one right there. Apparently, a fan sent him a card, got it photocopied, signed it, and sent it and put it up on the internet, I should say. So that'll be cool. Want to see Jerry's reaction to that. A lot going on in the world of sports. NFL training camps opening. In fact, I'm going to play some Kyle Shanahan sound for you. By the way, Kyle Shanahan, is this guy coaching an NFL team or competing in the X Games? I can't tell with all these flat bill hats and the surfer haircut and the chillaxed look, bro. He was asked about the Niners, by the way. If you didn't know, they took 40 days off from the building, 40 days off from football. Reporting today was them back in the building, and he was asked what those 40 days meant to him getting his head right. Remember, this guy has been a part of a few epic collapses. The Niners have been incredibly close to winning the Super Bowl, and it just has not happened. So this has to be the year for Kyle Shanahan, you'd have to think. But we're going to listen to that together in just a few minutes. By the way, just hitting the news feeds, the X, whatever you want to call it, Brandon Ayuk has reported to training camp for the 49ers. Now, that was a big topic of conversation. As of a couple minutes ago, he is in the building. The Niners saying they have no intentions of trading him. Usually, when the Niners say that, they mean it. And, hey, Adam, where are you at? Oh, you're late. Okay. Adam, did you see your boy Joe Burrow, how he reported to training camp? Is that Joe Burrow or Cody Rhodes? Does Joe Burrow have a story to finish? If you haven't seen Joe Burrow's new dude, go check it out on the X. It is pretty interesting. It's like Stan from Eminem meets Cody Rhodes. I mean, it literally kind of is Cody Rhodes. It's really weird to look at, but brings up the question of the day. If you were an NFL player, how would you report to training camp? Some of these guys go all out reporting to training camp. You've seen some of the really over-the-top entrances in past years, especially as Hard Knocks has come along. You've seen how some guys they come in construction equipment and tractors. They do it all. It's pretty funny. I mean, you got to keep it light. It's a serious time for these guys, especially if you're on the fringe of making an NFL roster. Those are always the best stories to me of the preseason. And speaking of football, they are seriously considering an 18 game season, excuse me. So they keep going up and up in these numbers. In fact, I want to make sure I get that right on Real GM. The NFLPA talking an 18 game schedule at a high level. That should be very interesting. Yes, there he is. Chicken and Dumplings Tuesday. If you had a chance to catch last night's show, we were talking Olympic sports. And so we were saying, a lot of things are now becoming Olympic sports. You have skateboarding. I pulled up the entire list of what is a Summer Olympic sport, and there are some head turners on there. And you got to think, I said it last night, and I'm staying to it. You got to think cornhole is going to be on its way to the Olympics at some point. But some of these sports I don't even recognize. I haven't seen them. Bane, am I muted? I'm not muted. I told you that off the top. Come on, my man. All good. What's up? Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley. Yes,
Holy moly, Jim
indeed.
Bob Bowley.
And I might be using my cough button a little bit today, so I apologize in advance. If I do like that, it's because I'm hitting the cough button. James, welcome into the King's Court. His name shouldn't be Kyle. Should be called Kylie because he can't make up his mind on his quarterback going from guy to guy. He does hop around on quarterbacks. You got to wonder that Trey Lance decision. Whose was that? Was that John Lynch? Who was high on Trey Lance in that building? Like, if you hit everybody with some truth serum, I would really like to know who made the push for Trey Lance, because it was, I think if the Niners had those picks back, what they would be now with probably some really good developing talent, really shoring up probably those, the offensive line for sure. But the skilled positions, they're off the charts. This year has to be the year for the 49ers. There's no way around it. In fact, let's go to Kyle Shanahan really quick.
40 days. I learned how much fun I can have before I need to go back, and it gets less and less each year as I get older. You start to realize how you got to balance more stuff out. I did a lot more like going on morning walks and stuff with my family, which made me feel very old, but after doing it for about 4 days, it made me feel a lot healthier. So like I enjoyed that stuff, got a lot more routines, and it's really about, I think as you go, I mean, this is my 20th season, and you so know what it's about. Like you so know what you're doing every single day. You so know about the 7-month grind, and it's not at all coming back to the hours. It's coming back to you're not gonna have a day off minus that bye week until hopefully February. And so it's just, you know what that takes, you know what you're gonna go through. So you kind of know how to handle yourself the 40 days away, you know, spiritually, mentally, physically, all the stuff. And players got to build their body up in a certain way. And guys who go to the Super Bowl, you know, our vets who have been in the playoffs for the last few years, who always do that extra stuff. When you do that your first time, you're like, holy cow, I didn't know how hard this was. And then everyone kind of learns what it's like, and coaches, players, everyone, I think you kind of understand.
So he's talking more about the 40 days. What was interesting about this was the question the reporter asked him was, and things were light at the beginning of the press conference. They were talking about Brandon Ayuk and basically saying that players still had an hour to report to camp, and they weren't sure if he was in the building or not. But the question comes, and it's the one we're listening to at the end of the press conference. They said, Kyle, what did you learn about yourself in these 40 days? And the mood had been light. It had been kind of upbeat. And I want you to go watch this once the show's over, if you get a few minutes to bump around on YouTube, because Kyle gets a little defensive. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And it kind of changed the tone, because I think the question is, what did you learn about yourself in the last 40 days, considering you've come so close to the pinnacle? And did you learn anything that's going to help take this team over the top, that's going to change your coaching style, that is going to make things more intentional in certain areas of the game? And so I found it really interesting, that little flip in his reactions. But you guys know him better than I do. I am not a Niners fan. Andrew hooking me up with a softball about the Seahawks. You know what? I am excited about the Mike McDonald era. I am. John Schneider always finds a way. It's the Seahawks GM, by the way, if you don't know. He always finds a way to shape the roster out. He finds guys that other teams look past. And so, you know, Seattle's been vaunted for their defense, right? Even in the days of Russell Wilson, it was the defense that carried those teams. So now you have a defensive coach in Seattle, and Seattle's known for speed on defense. So I want to see what that's going to look like. I also want to see this Geno Smith thing. This is really, for all intensive purposes, Geno's probably last year in Seattle, and he's had a hell of a run. The fact that he had bounced around the NFL so much and had some lows, I mean, some big time lows, especially in huge markets like New York. The fact that he found himself in Seattle and kept that confidence up, I think that's big for young players. And that's what Seattle is. They're a young team. Now, the offense for me, I want to see if they can get some more big plays, be more explosive. That is what I'm excited about. I want to see if you can really use Tyler Lockett, if you can really use DK Metcalf, because Metcalf demands a lot of attention. A lot of times he's doubled. So how can you exploit that? So I'm excited. It's a tough division. My expectations aren't crazy high for Seattle, but hey, Seattle fans, they always bring it. It's always a fun time. We're going to make it up for a game, though, this year. We try to make it to Seattle for a game. Last one we made it to was the Seahawks and the Niners. It was in December. It was a fun game. It was cold, though. And by the way, if you ever go to Seattle, what's it called now? Lumen Field. We got to sit in the Hawk's Nest. I'd always wanted to sit in the Hawk's Nest. And it is, let me tell you, you think Mount Everest is steep? Go climb the Hawk's Nest. It was so, and this was before my hips were bad. Our legs were burning when we got up to our seats, and we were only like 22 rows off the field, which was incredible. And so finally, my wife and I were like, you know what? Let's not get anything else to drink. Let's not get anything else to eat. We are just going to sit right here so we don't have to go back up those stairs. But always a good time indeed. Let's see. What's up, Alex? Sasha jersey is officially a throwback. Yes, he has been or negotiated his release from Toronto, waiving the remaining money on his contract for this year. You know what? Here's my take on it. The Kings, they were able to get some value out of him, trading him, right? But at the end of the day, Sasha was a big fish in a small pool. Then he came to the NBA, came to Sacramento, and he became a small fish in a big pool. He was just another piece of the team. He wasn't the team. And I don't think that has a big role to play in it, but it certainly isn't going to help that adjustment if you're coming over and moving your life to America to play basketball and you've got just another thing to worry about, Quite frankly and simply put, I just don't think the NBA game is for Sasha. So, unfortunately, it does not work out. Alex, if you bought your Sasha jersey with a American Express, there might be some hope for you, my man. You might be able to trade that in for a different Kings jersey. Did I see the St. Louis Cardinals home run celebration? Didn't think it was bad at all. I did not. Tell me what it was, CT Dog. Hook me up. Let me know. Let's see. I'm calling in for Jerry today. Oh, you are? Okay, Adam. You're producing the show now, too. I love it. I have other stuff to ask him about, but I'll definitely be asking DP or Gunther. All right, well, keep it tight with Jerry. Get in, get out, Adam. I will sometimes allow a quick follow-up, but you got to get in, get out with the one and only. But we'll bring you up if you want to ask Jerry a question or two. Not a problem. And that offer is open for all of you as well. But the important thing, because I want to be respectful of Jerry's time, get in and out. Don't be offended if you ask a follow-up and I take you off camera. That is just to keep it moving. So, CT Dog, hook me up with some more background on that home run celebration. And by the way, do we know if Shohei Ohtani's home run the other night has landed yet? That ball was ripped. Holy crap, man. That guy, talk about living up to the expectations. Somehow he has surpassed the expectations. And it's unfortunate that baseball is not doing more around Shohei. You should be marketing this guy until we are sick of him, but you rarely see a ton of stuff with him. MLB dropping the ball there. Rob Manfred, not the only issue they have. You get into this whole automated strike zone. Are you going to remove the umpires from the game, which I don't think they'll do. But I told you I was at a River Cats game a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and they do have a mechanism for replay now with balls and strikes. The batters just tap their helmet. You get 4 of them a game. If you get it, if your call or your challenge is correct, then you get to save your challenge. If it's not, you lose a challenge. But that was interesting. It actually didn't really slow the game down much at all, because what they do, it's that tennis technology. I don't know the name of it, but they go to the big screen. They've got basically an automated replay of the strike zone, and it will tell you whether the ball was in or out. Let's see. Sam Howell is a few games away from playing because Gino is on a short leash. It's a good point, but it's going to be Gino's team up until that point. And I don't think that leash is actually that short, to be honest with you. Well, you know, new coach. It could be. It could be a damn good point. And I don't mind giving Sam Howell some run. I mean, that's what this year's going to be for, because the Seahawks are going to have to get into the market for a quarterback if Howell does not pan out. And you talk about the market for quarterbacks, it starts with Jordan Love. I'm looking at quarterback pay right now, and I am just not sure where Jordan Love falls into this. I mean, yeah, he had a good year last year. Probably played some of the best football out of anybody the second half of the season, threw for over 4,000 yards. But this dude's not $50 million a year to me. And if you're a Green Bay fan, are you ready to get into bed at $50 million a year for him? Seems a lot. So let me know where you guys come out on that. You miss Russell Wilson. I feel like he's going to retire soon. I miss pre Ciara Russell Wilson. That's who I miss. Russell, his ascension to where he got with Seattle and to the point of being a Super Bowl champion was an incredible story. It was so fun to watch. It was captivating. The kid had his head on perfectly right. In fact, his mindset, he was a little bit ahead of schedule when it came to the mental side of the game and really talking with the psychologists and doing all those different things to not only train your body, but to also train your mind. And a lot of that bled down to the team, believe it or not. Now, there was some friction between the Legion of Boom and Russell because Russ was getting all the run while the defense was obviously the story of that team. But you couldn't help but love the way that Russell played the game. And then he meets Ciara, and he just turned into something that he always acted like he would never be. He kind of went Hollywood. He gets a property in Mexico and it puts his logo 3 on the field, and it just is what it is. And so, quite frankly, CT Dog, it broke my heart last year to see Russell playing for the Broncos. And by the way, Seattle got off him at the right time. They got lucky there, but it broke my heart seeing him fumble the ball, sit up on his knees, and watch the ball roll in front of him while everybody else dived on the pile to get the football. And Russ just sit there and just watched it. To me, that was like Russell's low point. Obviously, disagreements with Sean Payton, and it was a far cry from the Russell Wilson you saw after winning the NFC Championship game against the Green Bay Packers, where the Seahawks had nothing going the entire game until the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, and then they win it in overtime on a bomb to Curse, excuse me. Can't even talk right now because I feel like I'm going to cough. But crying and emotional and real. Russell became, to me, the opposite of that as time went on. So sat at the top of AT&T Stadium for WrestleMania and got vertigo. Did you, Adam? What's it like being at a WrestleMania in person? Like, if I'm going to do a WrestleMania in person, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to sit ringside, even though those tickets go for like $30,000. Are you kidding me? $30,000. What do you think about signing Isaac Okoro? Sorry if you already answered. It depends on the number, to be honest with you, but everything that I'm getting is this team's pretty content with riding into training camp the way they are. So I'm going to go with Monty. And the big thing that I preached through free agency, through everything this summer, was that they were going to stick to their morals as a front office and stick to their framework, the way they built this team. And they did that. They did not, had they gotten a Brandon Ingram, had they went out to get a Lauri Markkanen, had they gone out and gotten Zach LaVine. That would have been going outside of the way that Monty McNair runs a front office, because now you are locked into somebody. And I mean, locked into somebody that does not have that same commitment back to you, with the exception of LaVine, but still you're going to be paying him a ton of money. And if he doesn't pan out, he has no trade value. And so to me, he did everything right. DeMar DeRozan, short of him getting hurt, if DeMar gets hurt, then yes, his value's not good, but it's not working out here in Sacramento with DeMar DeRozan. He is still going to have a lot of value around the league to a contender, and he's on a contract that it's tradable. It can certainly be absorbed by another team. You guys know what Tuesdays are for. We've already had people saying, I want to call, I want to talk to Jerry. Ex-coach of your Sacramento Kings, GM of your Sacramento Kings, television analyst. We are so lucky to have the one and only every Tuesday here on the Kings Court. That is Jerry Reynolds. Jerry, look at that card below you. Look at that good-looking man.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely better looking than the current one, but it's all kind of part of the deal. I think I still have that sport coat, by the way.
Oh yeah. So did you when you coach in the league and you're on the sidelines 82 times a year, did you have different combinations, or did you have like 20 different suits? How'd you work it?
Well, about every year I'd buy one, and of course I that was in the day where they didn't provide clothing allowances, and of course I love the way the coaches now have it, where they can wear warm-ups or just slacks. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It should have been done that way, but I would just perspire through everything.
Yeah.
And but anyway, yeah, it was for the kind of the salary I made at that time, it actually was a little bit prohibitive.
Really?
Oh yeah, because you had to. I think the first time I was doing TV before, I think with the Maloofs actually bought Grant and I, 3 or 4 at least suits and
Oh,
things
nice.
like that, which was nice of them at the time. But till then, you're on your own, but you better dress properly, or more or less.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's been an interesting change. It was nice to hear your take on it, because I've heard the other side of it. Some basketball traditionalists are like, hey, it's not COVID era anymore. Get back into the suits. And I have your take. Why?
Yeah, I mean, you see football coaches, they don't wear suits and ties, and baseball managers actually, which is equally foolish, they wear uniforms.
I know.
I think they ought to wear some type of slacks, much like the basketball coaches do. But I get it. I mean, it was tradition for a long time, because some coaches really enjoyed, and of course they made a lot of money, the Chuck Daly's and the Pat Riley's.
Sure.
Certainly it meant a lot to them, I think, to look good on the sidelines. I was, and I knew that I could put a $5,000 suit on and I still looked the same. So so basically every, Men's Warehouse worked for me. That's the way I looked at it.
There you go. Love it. Jerry Reynolds, join us here on a Tuesday. Put your questions in the chat for Jerry if you have any. Want to talk a little Team USA basketball. They finished their exhibition before the Olympics. Now next up is the Olympics. Jerry, they've had some issues defending the paint, issues with turnovers. Kevin Durant still up in the air. Anything making you question that the USA comes home with gold?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think they will. I think they'll get it sorted out, because they just by far got the most talent, although there's some good teams they have to beat. But I worry about how they attack the zone. They're going to see a lot of zones, and there's, you just have to have better ball movement, and especially I just don't see them getting the ball, to the high post, and with the passing angles you have from there nearly enough. And so that's a concern. I mean, in the Olympics, you can play a pure zone. Not like the NBA, where you're not allowed to basically guard hardwood. But in Europe, or it's like in college,
Yeah,
you basically can put a man there waiting because that's where they want to come and
sure.
be ready for them. And so it makes it more difficult. So I guess that's my main concern is just how well they adjust to playing against the zone, because they're going to have to.
Yeah, it's a great point. And if you're Steve Kerr, how do you work Kevin Durant into this group now, seeing that he has not played in any of the exhibitions thus far?
Yeah, that's a great point. I know probably my first thought is, you really need to bring him off the bench, I think,
Mm,
early on, and work him in. He's going to be, or should be, one of your best players, but also think that the fact that he hasn't played, uh, you know, why, why rush it and just kind of disrupt what you have going with your starters. So, I mean, Durant is a pro's pro, and he'll adjust, but I would kind of try to bring him off the bench as a six man, and certainly, again, going back to the zone thing. I mean, he
yeah.
clearly would be a great weapon to bring in if you're struggling at all against any kind of zone.
It doesn't the zone to a degree, the way the game's played these days, worry you a little bit? Because we've even seen the great teams, the Celtics, we've seen it a lot with the Kings, fall in love with the easiest shot, whether rather than getting the best shot. Couldn't that kind of hurt Team USA as well if they get three happy?
Well, it could. Yeah, exactly right. And I think, because I think Team USA really would have probably more of an advantage going inside, breaking teams down, with the strength and size that they have. And, not that you want them to take threes. You got too many great 3-point shooters, but they should be
Yeah,
open, comfortable threes, not searching for them. And I think that's always kind of the difference, get guys with their feet set, having defenders, basically having to close out and run at them.
yeah,
Uh, that's the three you want. So you're not going to get those just passing around the perimeter. It's there that's a easy closeout. So the way you get those is by dribble penetration, bringing defenders your way, or passing inside, kicking out. So that I think
exactly.
those are two areas that I don't think we've seen enough to be real confident that this team can roll to a gold medal anyway.
Yeah, it's a great point. With the zone, who would you want if you're Steve Kerr? Who are you putting in the middle to break it?
Well, that is I actually that's a great question. I think you could put Tatum in there. I mean, you could put anybody that's a good passer, that will draw attention. I mean, it doesn't have to be a center. Certainly, you wouldn't want to put a guard in there, but
No,
I mean, actually, Embiid would be fine, or Davis. Both are good in there. I mean, that if they really would look to make the pass first, it's one of those
sure.
things. The key is this quick second pass. You want them to get the ball, and then that with a quick pass to them, and then another quick pass, and that'll break down the zone where
Yes.
you. But if you want to hold it and pound it and look around, then the zone can match up too easy.
Absolutely. You know who that guy is. It's Kevin Durant. That's why they want Kevin Durant on that roster. He's perfect to put right there in the
Yeah, he
middle.
really is. I mean, he can play on the wing, but you could, really slice him in there to the high post, get a hit on him, and they got to react immediately. And he is a good passer. So,
Yep.
but being a good passer and passing is still two different things.
It's a good point, Jerry. It's a very good point. Cap has a question for you. Jerry, do you think the Kings I don't think they meant to put D don't. Jerry, do you think the Kings need another big or power forward?
Well, I do. I think they need another big. I sure wish that they could get another, little a power forward type that kind of fits well with Domas and could maybe even play a little backup center at times. Uh, so that I mean, obviously, I think they've been trying to do that, but maybe they haven't. But the team. I like the team as it is, but I think to contend in the West, I honestly think they're too small, and they really need another guy. You know, I don't know who's out there. You know, I mean, it wouldn't be ideal, but somebody like a John Collins would probably be pretty good here. You know, probably better here than he was in Utah. In fact, I think Domas would almost guarantee that. But he's big enough and tough enough, and a lot of fans might have forgot. But I recall doing his early part of his career, and he played center for the Hawks.
Yes, that's right.
And he was a center in college, and so, you know, not saying he's ideal, but you know, he's big enough. You know, he's legit 6'9", 240 pounds, and well built. So anyway, but to get back to the question, I agree. I mean, I think they've got to figure out a way, or hopefully can find somebody, if not by the start of the season, maybe middle of the season, you know, much like Dallas did, which changed their team for the better.
There you go. I am with Jerry. You got to have that one more piece. But overall, I think the Kings, we were talking about this before you came on. Monty really stuck to his principles as a general manager, didn't go to a place where the Kings don't have the ability to still be flexible. And I think it's been a pretty good, all things considered, offseason with Monk coming back and then DeRozan as well. If you had to give him a grade, Jerry, what would you give him up until this point?
Well, I'd give him no worse than an A-. You know, I think he, you know, because I think the draft will eventually prove out to be a very good draft with Carter. Now, you know, he's not going to be able to play, but still, your idea is to get a really good player at that number, and I think he did, and we'll find out as it goes. So, you know, so the two things that he had a chance to do, both, I think, were very positive. You know, if you know, just looking at the draft in the summer league, the only guy I see that I kind of wish not only the Kings hadn't passed off, but I think a lot of teams missed on was Khalil Ware.
Yes.
That the Heat took, you know, I mean, he looks to me, and that's summer league, and it's early, and I would never base too much on, but he looks better than Klingon or Asar by far.
Especially solid point.
I mean, yeah. So, you know, I always say, you know, I've watched him a few times, and knowing Miami, they just always get it right.
They get the right guys. Jaime Jaquez, you know, he's been great for him.
Yeah, and Ware, you know, I tell you, he reminds me of a better shooting version of Lively.
Wow.
You know, he's a lively athlete like Lively, and plus he can shoot a little bit.
Yeah, and the shooting was, the shooting was what was kind of the question with him at times. The Kings had him in for a workout, so they got a good look at him. But yeah, he would have been a good fit. I mean, it is summer league though, as you said.
Yeah, you don't want to, you know, there again, I'm doing that, but I mean, you got to give guys a chance, because a lot of guys, over the years, have looked good in summer league and didn't progress, and then some others weren't too impressive and became impressive. So, you know, but it's also true for guys. I've never seen a guy that turned out to be a star in the league that didn't look pretty darn good in summer league.
Very well said. Very well said. Yeah. And, you know, they're starting to pull back a little bit during the summer. Some teams see enough, a couple games into the summer league, they're like, all right, we're going to rest you the rest of the way. We've seen what we need to see. So understand that as well. Jerry, CT Dog is hopping back to Team USA really quick. Who do you think the best lineup is for America?
You know, that's a question I probably can't answer. I don't want to see Dog cop out on you here, but I'd like to see him play a little more. You know, I just really haven't studied it much. You know, just watch snippets of the thing. I mean, but you're on to the right thing, is that Coach Kerr's got so many ways he can go. You know, I mean, I think once you figure that Davis has to be in there, and LeBron and Curry and Edwards, well, that's four.
Yeah, I know.
And I think, quite honestly, if Durant's healthy, that probably makes you five. But you could go, you know, I mean, that's the thing about it, is you know, your second unit could very well be as talented as your first. But so it really, I think if I'm Coach Kerr, I'm probably still mulling that point over, to be honest with you. I mean, the only question I'd have at this stage is I'm not sure Joel Embiid should be a starter. He just hasn't.
Yeah.
He just hasn't looked healthy and fresh enough. So that would be, that would be my concern there. And I think just about any combination of guys could work. But I do like the veteran, the veteran aspect of it. The guys that have played in FIBA and international basketball really, it's a real help because it's a different game.
Yeah, what makes it so different for those that have not watched a lot of FIBA in the international game?
Well, the ball, for one thing, it's a different ball. I mean, it's certainly, it's not that you can't adjust to it, but it is adjustment. It's not exactly like the NBA ball. So that's an adjustment. Obviously, the 10-minute quarters and things are that's a little different. So of course, length of the game is different. I think the officiating is probably the biggest adjustment. I mean, it's not to say it's unfair or anything, but it is different. And then of course a lot of zone. That I mean, I think it's from what I've seen over the years is the European teams force the American teams to play a little more in the half court.
Yes.
And because they play a lot more in the half court. So you find if you play, in the Olympics, you're going to probably see more half court basketball than you want to see. But I think that's just the nature of it.
And that plays to the advantage of the world because the USA, nobody can run with them in transition. They are
Right.
far and away the best transition team in the tournament. But that's where I worry, Jerry, about Team USA is if you make them work hard enough on defense. I don't think they have great foot speed on the perimeter. And I think getting through screens, with the exception of Drew Holiday and Derek White, is going to be an issue for some of the other guards. But make them work on defense. Use the shot clock because they've got to use those same legs on the other side of the court to play offense.
That's a great point. I mean, I do think that. I mean, they're, most of the teams the Americans are going to play are very guardable. I mean, they'll have, not that they don't have talent, but I think the USA has guys that can guard them. And you point out another thing. I think with White and Drew Holiday, you got two guys that you can plug in just about anywhere. I mean, they're not obviously the top players, but they can play with the top players.
Exactly.
And fit in. They're just tremendous role players and talented in their own right. But they can be valuable without taking shots or even looking.
Great point. It's such a solid point because if you want to knock the USA program, it's you just stack the best 12 players in the world on a team and roll a ball out there is sometimes the conception. And Jerry, you know this from building teams. That's not how you build a winning basketball team.
No, you got to have some stars and you got to have talent, but you also have to have guys that can play with them and want to fit in.
Yes.
And adjust. And I thought, not that I understand with Jaylen Brown not being selected as opposed to Derek White. I mean, certainly Brown's better, but I think I think Grant Hill and Steve Kerr, I think they were looking at, we know we've got stars.
Yep.
We have enough stars. We need somebody to fit in with them. And I think like I say, the selection of Drew Holiday and White, I think will prove to be very valuable. And I don't think one would say automatically that's two of the 12 best players in the NBA, because I don't believe that's true. But that, like you say, there's a lot of factors besides just putting out five individual one-on-one guys who can do it. I mean, the dream team could do that because the world wasn't quite as good, and then the dream team was that good.
Yeah. It's such a great point, and an awesome point as well about Drew Holiday and Derek White being able to play with any of those guys. That is the perfect fit for them. Adam wants to ask you a question. Jerry, welcome on. You're on with Jerry Reynolds, Adam.
Let's go. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Thank you for letting me talk to you, Mr. Reynolds.
Yeah,
Adam. I want to say thank you. Probably 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, my old boss used to give me his 5th row ticket center court right behind you and Grant. So you guys would always take a few moments to take a picture with me. And I just want to say thanks. You guys were always great together.
Well, thank you. I just considered it a really honor to get to take pictures with fans.
I was usually the only Kings fan in that arena, so I was hard to find. But anyway, so I have a picture of me and this guy, Vinny Del Negro,
Oh yeah.
from a basketball camp, probably 1993, 94, 95, somewhere in there. But looking back, you were the coach of the Kings in 1988 to 1990, which were the years that Vinny played in Sacramento.
Yep.
Just curious on what you remember from a draft perspective when you're looking at Vinny, and what kind of dude he was. And also, after 1990, he left to go play in Italy, which back then seems maybe a little unheard of. So just curious if you could share some insight with that.
Yeah, I've got appreciate the questions about Vinny, because one of the all-time good guys, by the way. But it was interesting. A second round pick out of North Carolina State, and Bill Russell was the general manager at that time. But I know Scotty Sterling was our only college scout. He was very, very much a favorite for Vinny. And then once we got him, he was very good. A very good second-year player. We lost him, didn't we?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll go ahead. But with Vinny, it was typical of the franchise at that time. Vinny wanted to stay, obviously, and the team would only offer him like $400,000 a year to stay, and he was offered $800,000 to go to Italy. Well, I didn't blame Vinny at all, because I was really upset. As a coach, it's like, you can't play, saving $400,000. That don't help you get better.
Yeah,
but that was just another example of some of those things. The trade of Otis Thorpe, losing Vinny for no reason. It's just very frustrating. But Vinny was very good, and when he went on to play with the Spurs later, had a very, very good rest of his career. The one thing I'd say about Vinny, almost never took a bad shot, and never turned it over. I mean, he really was one of those guys you could count on taking care of the ball, and if you wanted a certain play run, he could run it for you. He wasn't quite, quick enough and fast enough to be a major star, but he's a guy every team in the league could have used, and a lot of them did. But I mean, he's one of those guys that every coach and teammate, Vinny was the best. So
that's almost one of the best compliments you can pay a player. Really, I mean, you don't turn the ball over, you shoot the ball well. A coach's dream, really, a guy that everybody wants to play with.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would say he and Danny Ainge played together a little bit, and they were really good together, because Danny would kind of go on his own a little bit and be creative, and Vinny could kind of bring him back into the fold. And I mean, Danny was terrific, even though he was past his prime when we got him. But Vinny, and had the mentality to kind of, because Danny could be a little bit on his teammates, because he was better than they were, and he didn't mind telling them occasionally. But so he was Vinny was a great go between, a little bit like Vlade was with C-Web, really, kind of smooth the waters.
You got to have a couple of those on the team too.
You really do.
So, Adam, I can't bring you back up. We were getting feedback from your audio. So I know Adam was going to ask you this question. Jerry, you don't need to spend any more time than just saying a name here. Damian Priest or Gunther? Which one do you like?
Damian Priest or who?
Gunther.
I don't even know who they are.
That's the point. Which one sounds better to you? Would you choose Damian Priest or Gunther?
Well, I'd have to go with Gunther, because that just sounds country enough that it might work for me.
There you go. I knew Jerry would go Gunther. Adam is our wrestling correspondent. So those are two professional wrestlers. They're getting ready to have a match. And he's like, I got to ask Jerry which one he's going to. I'm like, Jerry doesn't know wrestling.
No, he doesn't know
on.
squat. I'll go with Adam, whoever he thinks.
There we go.
I mean, I used to watch a good bit of it, but just anyway, got too many things to watch as it is.
I know, especially these days. You can find something anytime on demand. Gammon, thank you for the super chat. He has a question for you, Jerry. What is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Well, that's great. I'd probably say Hoosiers because I was well aware of the story. I grew up around that time, and they changed the name, but I knew the story, and it's fairly accurate. And so and I met the guy that played Jimmy Chitwood. He was
cool.
At one time he wasn't an actor, except he was in that movie, and he was an assistant golf pro, I think, in L.A. and just happened to meet him. But anyway, so that one, and then Raging Bull, I thought was a great sports movie with obviously De Niro and Joe Pesci.
Can't go wrong.
There again, I grew up as a boxing fan. My dad had been a professional boxer, and we used to watch fights together and stuff. And so Jake LaMotta, I was well aware of him, and basically a top level fighter as well as a questionable character. But I thought that was a great sports movie.
Those are two really good ones. Gammon, I gotta say Rudy. Rudy is actually not just my favorite sports movie, maybe my favorite movie of all time, but I'm partial to Notre Dame. So
that would do it. Yeah, that was obviously very emotional kind of thing. I mean, The Natural was terrific. It wasn't loosely based on, well, it wasn't based on much, but they had a great cast and loved that. There's I think Moneyball. I thought
Moneyball was really good.
Moneyball was well done, and if Brad Pitt's in it, you probably can't go too far wrong.
Yep, this is true. Angels in the Outfield, Jerry. You ever seen that one?
I probably did, but I can't think of it much. I remember, of course, Bull Durham. I think that's another that comes to mind. It's a great movie.
Yep, Bull Durham.
And Costner was in another one where he was a pitcher, and I can't think of this.
Field of Dreams?
Well, that one too. That was very enjoyable, but he was an actual major league pitcher, pitched no-hitter. Kevin, and I can't think of the name, but I thought pretty well done. Kevin was enough of an athlete that he could make it believable.
Yeah, he was in Tin Cup as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But he's like I say, pretty much with Costner too. Yeah, he's enough of an athlete.
Can't go wrong.
I always say as a kid, I always remember they had a Babe Ruth movie with like John Goodman or somebody playing Babe Ruth. It was just like, oh no. I mean, that's not working, fellas.
Yeah, it probably doesn't look exactly the same as the Babe. But hey, I want to take you back to a time. This is a conversation I've wanted to have for a while with you. I grew up 90s Kings, right? The Arco Arena, it's got the sellout streak. You've got Mitch Richmond, but not really a good team.
Right.
Yet this city just embraced that team. Jerry, what was it like in the 90s to see those games, call those games, and what was it about the teams that made the city get so attached to them?
Well, I think the one of the things about that team, of course, you had a major star in Mitch, which I always say, that helps. I mean, the team wasn't bad, but it wasn't real good. I mean, kind of very mediocre in a sense. But then the other thing was, it was so physical. That's still the most physical team that the Kings have ever had. You had Sarunas Marciulionis, and Brian Grant, and Mike the Animal Smith, Olden Pollack.
Yes.
I mean, they would, kind of dust you off there a little bit, and so I think the fans really appreciated that, and they were really good at home. you know, they,
Mhm.
I mean, they definitely were awful tough to beat at home. But I thought that as much as anything, you know, he had a couple of young guys that could identify with, and then a major star in Mitch. But like I say, just the physicalness of it. There wasn't a team in the league. It's probably first and only time the Kings have been that physical to where I guarantee you teams come in little bit and scared. You know, I mean, you'd see
Yeah.
guys. You know, I always say it's kind of like the prime of Ron Artest's career, where you know guys, a lot of guys that they would come up injured right before they had to play him. You know, against
No
Well, it's
doubt.
like, you know, I might have told you the story about Artest. You know, when we Kings traded for him, I remember talking to Larry Bird about him because he was the general manager at the time,
Uh-huh.
and because he was asking me about Peja, and you know, and so you know, we just exchanged information. But he told me, he said, "I'll tell you one thing about Ron." He said, uh, half the league is scared of him, and the other half ought to be. and you know, and that's right. I mean, Ron was a good guy, but when it come down to on the court, I mean, very intimidating. I don't know the Kings have ever had a player quite that intimidating, but like I say, that was where. But Mitch and those guys as a team certainly were more than anybody.
Yeah, I remember Michael the Animal Smith. He always wore the breathe rights. As kids, we
Mhm.
wanted to wear them because he wore them, and
Yeah.
those teams just played so hard, Jerry.
Oh, they
I just
did. They
it was
did. I
such a
mean,
pleasure to grow
different,
up
little
watching the
different.
game like that.
Yeah, a little different game, and I mean, like I say, if you drove the basket, they might touch you a little bit. You
Sure,
know,
dust you up.
and when they touched you, you'd stay touched for quite a while.
They blessed you. They
They
blessed
blessed you. Yes, they did.
I love it. So we were talking about your book, Reynolds Remembers. You got to go check it out if you haven't already. People were putting some memories from that in there. If you had to add a couple chapters onto the book today, what do you think you would add on?
Well, I'd probably there'd be a lot of years that I'd went blank, if that's what you mean,
Oh,
because there was just
stop.
so well, it's true. I mean, there's just really some years in there where they really weren't much to talk about. You know, along the way, I thought the Kings during those dark years, so to speak, had some very interesting guys. Isaiah Thomas comes to mind. I
Hmm.
thought just you know, maybe the really had the best career till he's injured of probably any King uh, in history. And then, you know, I always say our front office didn't understand it, you know, but, you know, a guy that went on to be finished third in MVP one year and averaged 29 for the Celtics on a 52 win team, scored 50 in a game seven, you know, then and played hurt. And that's really what ended his career, played on a bad hip. So he was and just the delight, I would say. Kevin Martin, really enjoyed Kevin. You know, could really score the ball. Uh, liked really liked Tyreek Evans. You know, shy, but I thought you know his career didn't get the family support he needed. In fact, is maybe it's what hurt him. You know, because
Interesting.
he should have been and could have been a real star. I think, but you know that's always the way it is. For every guy that makes it, there's two or three with equal talent that don't.
Sure, no, it's a great point. When you think back to the Isaiah, because Isaiah to me was such a special player. He was just different. He was smaller. He was flying around, but he played so big. It was weird. There was a time where there was a little bit of smoke that there was friction between him and DeMarcus. Was there anything to that that contributed to the Kings not bringing him back?
I think there was a little bit. I think there was definitely some friction because you know Isaiah would stand up for himself. You know, I mean,
Hmm.
Demarcus really tried to bully people, and Isaiah wasn't going to be bullied.
Yeah,
And then
Seattle
with
boy.
and I think there was
What you need to do for yourself.
some jealousy too. You know, because I mean Isaiah was so popular. The Kings upper echelon really never appreciated how good Isaiah was. And, you know, they kept looking for his flaws. Well, he's too little. Yeah, he's not a
Yeah.
good defender. All that's true. but you couldn't guard him. I always
No.
remember the key thing I'd say about Isaiah at that time was Scotty Brooks was a coach at Oklahoma City, and of course knew Scotty well. He'd later on been an assistant with us, but
Hmm.
at that time Oklahoma City was one of the best teams. They had Durant and Westbrook and those guys. And he said after a game, me and Isaiah had a huge game against them, and we were just visiting. He said, "I want to tell you one thing." He said, "Never heard Westbrook say this, but he said during a timeout or something, he said, I'll tell you, Coach, I can't guard that guy." And I always thought, now that means something. Russell
Especially
Westbrook
Westbrook. He was
that time,
quicker than everyone.
Yeah, it's like so I mean, sometimes there's things on the floor that have special meaning, and that struck me as a broadcaster at that time. But I tried to tell some of the higher ups that, but they didn't want to hear it. So anyway.
Of course. Gammon, thank you again for the super chat. It broke his heart that Bobby Hurley did not work out. That was a just tough situation for all involved. And I'm sure you being in the franchise at that time, hard times.
I drafted him. So that was, really too bad because, Bobby basically was doing okay as a rookie for 19 games before he had that accident. He was well on his way, I think, to being very good. I don't know that he'd been an all-star or anything, but his speed and quickness was really off the charts, and decision making, in the open court. I don't know if the Kings have ever had a guard as good in the open court as what Bobby was, and we just had started to see that. But those injuries that he had, and of course, I always remember being at the hospital that night where they were ready to pronounce last rites on him on two occasions, and of course had so many other injuries to go with it. But his body was torn up, and he was just I always remember his shoulder was so damaged that it really affected his dribble with his left hand. He really, he'd been great with his left hand in college, and so it was. I think he'd have been real good. I always remember John Stockton telling me that during the Olympic trials they played against those guys, the college guys, and Bobby had been real good. But he said one thing about Bobby you don't see much. He says he passes for layups. He said a lot of guys get assists, but they're not. They're passing backwards or something. But he said, he finds guys for layups. Of course, Stockton did that too.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just a sad tale, and but he tried to come back and just never could do it. I always say that was kind of a miraculous in its own right. I always remember Jay Williams later, high pick, was injured, and he really never even hardly tried. But Bobby had far more injuries and serious injuries, and he was trying to play in summer league that summer, which was
incredible.
Really a mistake on our part as a franchise to even allow him to do it. But anyway, so that's Bobby. I always say, those things happen. I always say Ricky Berry was a rookie the same year Vinny Del Negro was, and he would have been a major star. And then, of course, he took his own life. And that was so that's the thing about sports. You just don't know how things are going to go long term, or what options or with athletes if they're going to have a long career.
Yeah, and you know what? Bobby didn't get to really bounce back on the court, but he's getting to share so much of that right now coaching in college. He is an excellent college coach. And I was at the game when Bobby first came back and was reintroduced to the crowd. He wasn't playing, but it was a surprise to the crowd that he was going to be there. And it's one of the loudest standing ovations that I remember at Arco Arena to this day.
Yeah, really, I mean, it's like I say, he was very well liked by everybody. And I noticed one of the questions, was Hurley a leader and had work ethic. I'm not sure he was a great leader, but I mean, he wasn't a bad one. I mean, I don't know, just couldn't tell at that time how he would have been, but his work ethic was off the charts. I mean, that was, he'd practice twice a day during camp, and then we'd catch him going out and running, getting jogging
Little
30
extra.
miles. I was like, Bobby, you got to stop that, But kind of a Davion Mitchell thing, where they
Sure.
just maybe overdid it a little bit. You got to save your body a little bit, but yeah, he's
Sure.
a good coach, and obviously now he's the second best coach in the family because his brother.
Yes, Dan. Talk about a competitive family. I heard the Hurleys had some DNA testing done and it came back as basketball IQ. That was just the rumor on the street.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Of course, I know the dad a little bit, and Danny both, and just all and Bobby. I mean, they're just competitive juices are more than overflowing. You might say.
No doubt about it. We're going to wrap up here. Gammon, thank you again for the super chats, my friend. We very much appreciate it. He'll get last question for you, Jerry. MJ never said it, but I always felt that Mitch Richmond was his toughest opponent. Big, strong, range and D. Really quick, Gammon. I believe Michael Jordan did say that Mitch Richmond was one of the toughest guards for him, but go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, he did. I know that. Yeah, he did say that he thought Mitch was the kind of the second best shooting guard, because there's no doubt who was the best was Michael Jordan, because a lot of people tried to say Drexler was, but I think, and I think the real difference, and not that Drexler wasn't great, he clearly was, and maybe offensively even better, but I mean, Mitch was a tough defender, and he gave Michael some trouble physically. And so, he was one of those guys that just simply Michael knew that he couldn't push anywhere. And so, Michael, I know Michael, I always remember we just traded for Mitch, and a lot of the Bay Area people were saying that, they got Billy Owen, so he's going to be the next Larry Bird or something.
Yeah.
And of course, and the thing that really quieted the writers down, I mean, everybody in Sacramento was thrilled, but the Bay Area is trying to make light of it, like we got screwed. And Michael said, because Jordan was playing there like the next game or something, he said, "Oh, Kings won that trade big time." Mitch is, and they didn't know, it was one of those deals they didn't know what to say. It's like,
coming from Michael,
it comes right from Mount Sinai. You got to take it as gospel.
Exactly. You know what I remember about Mitch really quick, Jerry, is I don't know, even to this day, that I can remember a two guard that had a better base than Mitch Richmond. When he would get down in his defensive stance, when he would guard in the post, or when he would post up a little bit, his base was so strong and solid and fundamental.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think that's a great point. I mean, when he first came in the league, he really was a post-up guard. He'd take guys down there and just beat them up.
Mm-hmm.
Became, he was a good shooter, but he became a great shooter. And so, he's more like I say Anthony Edwards reminds me of Mitch a little. He's not as good in the low post as Mitch was, but then again, he's early on, he's a better perimeter shooter than Mitch was at the same age and more athletic. I mean, Mitch was athletic, but, Edwards is kind of on his own.
Freaky
on the island there, yeah.
Yes, he is a bird of a different feather. And I guess the last question everybody needs to know: did you get your chicken and dumplings this week, Jerry?
Sure did.
Oh yeah.
I've got to quit that.
Holy moly, Jim Bowley.
But Mrs. Reynolds agreed to go with me, so I got them. And being a diabetic, I don't advise that, by the way. But I think once a week, you gotta treat yourself once in a while.
Balance. That's what it's about. You got to enjoy the good stuff sometimes, and then you pull back a little bit for doing it. So I love it. Jerry, thank you so much for joining us, as you always do, and try to stay cool. It is hot.
It is hot. And so I'm leaving this area here pretty quick. So
yes, get up the hill.
So anyway, I'll try to start preparing for next week sometime later this afternoon. Okay.
Sounds good. I'll be checking in to make sure that we are on track.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. Have a great one. The one and only Jerry Reynolds. What a fun conversation. We we never know where the conversations are going to go. We talk about the topical things, but inevitably, whether it's from your questions or Jerry and I starting to chop it up, we get to places where you learn things that you never knew about the Kings. You learn things about basketball. How many of you knew the differences with FIBA and international play versus the NBA? I knew most of those, but there are good points. Basketball players are creatures of habit. Do you notice before games, you got certain guards going to check the game ball out? They're feeling things up, making sure the ball is right. So those little things make a big difference. Yeah, you know what? We are going to make sure that we send Jerry and Mrs. Reynolds to Cracker Barrel. But yes, that would be very good. Good idea, Alberto. We will see about that. He loves his chicken and dumplings. For Jerry to say that chicken and dumplings there are close to his mother's, considering Jerry is from the South, that is pretty damn high praise. So, yeah, echoing your sentiments, Jerry, obviously, thank you very much. He always makes time for us on his Tuesdays and kind of the end of the work week for him. And then it's off to play for sure. That'll knock your earwax loose. There's a good quote, AB. I love all the love that you guys show to Jerry. Just a incredible human being. You take basketball out of it. Jerry is just one of the best people I've ever met in my life, and I'm so lucky to be able to call him a friend. But some good stuff right there. Adam, my man. Adam, what happened? You got to tighten that setup, boy. Adam, your feedback. I'm sorry I had to take you down. The feedback was bad. Is bad. Gammon, you want to know my age? I am 40, like Mike Gundy said. I'm a man. I'm 40. Just turned 40 this year, Gammon. But yeah, I'll leave that one alone. Never mind. I was going to bring up the hips, Gammon, but we're not going to go there. I had 2 hip replacements last year before the age of 40. So I guess I'm technically maybe a little bit older. I'm more in Jerry's bracket. Let's see. BJ, Jerry is a living legend of a human being. Would love to meet that dude. Yes. Jerry is one of the most humble people that I know too. When I'm with him or I've been with him in public and people come up and want to talk to him, it genuinely still strikes Jerry that people would like to talk to him. Just like when Adam came on and Jerry said, "Hey, I'm surprised that you wanted to take a picture with me. Thank you." He said last week with the cards, and that's why we have that one right there, that he will still have people send him fan mail. And occasionally it will be a card. They'll ask for him to sign it. He'll sign it and send it back to him. In fact, I don't know how many of you, if you're in my age group, then you probably have. Back in the day, there used to be books that you could buy at your book fair. And the books were basically addresses that you could send fan mail to your favorite athletes. So, like, there were different editions of them that came out, but you would send stuff off. In fact, Mitch Richmond was my favorite player growing up. In fact, everybody always asks, that's actually Mitch Ball right there. But you would send off a letter to an athlete at their P.O. box or whatever. Obviously, it's not their address. Although, I will tell you, with the internet these days, there's probably more information out there than a lot of athletes want to be out there. And that even goes for people like us. You can find a lot of information on people, but you would send something out, whether it's a letter, "Hey, you're my favorite player." I sent one to Jerry Rice. The athletes would send you things back sometimes. Jerry Rice would actually send back signed pictures, and they were legit autographs. So getting those books, it was like the biggest deal in the world. And then you'd cut side deals with your friends, and they're like, "Oh, I want Mike Piazza's address, man. Okay, that's going to be 20 pogs and a slammer." All right, you get what I'm saying. But a lot of people still send off mail. Gammon remembers that. Yes, indeed. Let's see. Let's try to up with the chat. Ryan, are you going to announce the meetup once we get to 1,000? My man, Alberto, once we get to 1,000, yes, we are back planning, and I can neither confirm nor deny that Jerry Reynolds might be a part of that plan. Some of you saying you want to meet Jerry Reynolds, that might be in the cards. So help us get to 1,000 on Twitter. Do me a favor. I know many of you already follow, so thank you very much for that. I greatly appreciate it. If you don't happen to follow, scan that QR code. It'll take you to the X page. It will also give you the links to the audio for the King's Court. We are 3 away from 1,000. And that's also going to trigger our Malik Monk signed jersey giveaway as well. And then don't forget, make sure you show Grant love. We are on his channel if you don't like that. In fact, we will be back tonight at 8 o'clock doing an open forum show. So make sure you join us back for that. Looking forward to catching up with Grant. We had a really fun show last night. It has been he is that guy. He definitely is. Gammon sent cards to get autographed, no doubt. Not the Pogs, dude. The Pogs, man. Those we went from trading cards always, right? Always trading cards. And then marbles. We got into marbles where you had to hit the other person's marble and then you get to keep it, whatever. And then it was Pogs. You know what's funny, though, looking back on it? It was gambling. It literally was gambling. Pogs. And then you'd get like the slammers, whether they were like the plastic ones that had like the clear images inside, or you could get the ninja samurai sword ones, or the little, there was a lot going on there. So anyways, hey, we are going to wrap it up there. I am playing. Oh, AB, let's get your story in here. Met Jerry when he used to do announcing on the first level. He was so nice and talked with me and my buddy, who were obviously intoxicated. I tried to buy him a beer. He politely declined. Yes. Hey, at least you asked, AB. Good of you. AB, I just want to make sure you weren't that dude that had the reversal in the Kings game, right, AB? That wasn't you? I just want to make sure. I hope that wasn't you, AB. That was probably a low point of that person's life. That was bad. So anyways, hey, make sure BJ hopping up. Holy moly, a meetup with the redheaded stepchild of Sucktown and the living legend, Mr. Reynolds. With you too, Rhino? No effing way, bro. Well, I didn't say Grant was going to be there. I said Jerry might possibly be there. But no, we are going, BJ, by the way, we will do, Grant's already been asked. He said that if he is in town, we will definitely do this season a watch party for a Kings road game. We won't do a home game in case you guys are going to that. We will do a watch party at Bennett's. And if anybody's been to some of those events, I know Corn Dog has been to one. We did them throughout the playoffs in the 22-23 season. Those were a lot of fun. We had some that were down in Midtown, right down by the arena. A really good time. Come on out, watch the games with us. We do our shows from there. So Cody, I know you're lurking around there somewhere. Cody was always there. First one there, last one to leave. Cody, always a pleasure to hang out with. But Bane saying he sent out to the teams as well. Interesting. You got Doug Christie, Tony Delk, Bobby Jackson, Dirk, and others. Very cool. You know, the only mistake I have ever made, Bane, in my life as a fan, and this was a mistake. One of the guys that I went to high school with, he was friends with Al Biacani, and there was some type of relationship there. And this was before, like way before I started working out with Al Biacani. But he invited me to go to a game with him. And so we had seats that were provided by Al. And this was back in like 2001 when the Kings we're talking the heart of the Kings. It was a Sunday afternoon game on national TV. And Al had come up to us before the game and said, "Hey, I might be able to send somebody up at halftime to come bring you guys down to the court while the Kings are warming up before the second half. And so, of course, me, even though I've grown up around the Kings, even though I've been around professional athletes a lot of my life, I was still like wide-eyed. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so cool. And anyways, so he sends somebody up. We come down. We are on the court, standing under the basket as the guys are warming up. And I couldn't help myself. I was like, Doug, can I get a picture with you, Doug? I thought Al Biacani was going to tackle me. Like, literally, I got the picture. I don't know where it's at now. Doug was nice enough to take it. But Al, he let me know that was not okay. So that was like one of those instances where you learn like what to do, what not to do when you're around pro athletes. But Al and I used to joke about that once I started working out with him in college. But who's playing in the Super Bowl this year? I don't know, Gammon. We'll talk about it at 8 o'clock. We've got a lot of football to talk about, especially Jordan Love. Where does he fall into things with the quarterback picture? What is Green Bay going to pay him? Also, Brandon Ayuk has reported to training camp for the San Francisco 49ers. We have fantasy football rankings as well. I want to get a beat on what all of you are thinking. I know a ton of you play, whether it's traditional fantasy or daily fantasy, you are involved. And by the way, we are bringing back our Pick'em League this year. Remember last year, I believe Peter is the one that won our league. You pick every single game each week against the spread. We go ATS, against the spread, which makes it really hard. In fact, Peter, I think, was around 62% for the season. And by the way, 62% is right about where most of the Vegas pickers are at. Grant was a little bit below that, but it is completely free to join the league. It is done through Yahoo, and we will have a prize. I believe last year the prize was donated by Jay Griffiths and his lovely wife Kathy. So we will make sure we have another prize this year, free to join. Make sure you get up in that. We will give you the information as the season gets closer. And then we didn't even get to some of the different Olympic sports that surprised me. We were talking last night about how everything is turning into an Olympic sport, like rhythmic gymnastics. What are rhythmic gymnastics? There's some weird ones here. Trampoline, anybody? Trampoline. The league will start week 1 of the NFL season. So we will have the information to you well before then so you can get signed up. But the picks will begin week 1. So I'm going to have some fun with Grant tonight with this list of Olympic sports. What's breaking? Anybody know what breaking is? The only breaking I know of has a bad behind it. So it's going to be fun. It's open forum, so bring it tonight. We will have a good show as always. Thank you, everybody, for being here this afternoon, and a huge thanks, as always, to Jerry Reynolds for coming through as he usually does on Tuesdays here on the King's Court. Extremely, extremely lucky to have Jerry join us on a weekly basis. Pretty damn cool. And thank you to all of you, best and most knowledgeable fans in the NBA. Again, we will be back tonight at 8 o'clock. Make sure you join Grant and I then. You can call the show, put questions in the chat. We will have a good old time. Go Kings, light the damn beam. Stay the hell away from Levine. That's for you, BJ. That is for you. It's almost time. Yeah, it's time for court to be dismissed. Thank you, everybody. So long.